Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and yes, it's true, I've played Metal Gear Solid The Master Collection Volume 1, even specifically the Nintendo Switch version. Ooh. Yes, Konami invited me to come and play the game early and preview it, and so I did, and I'm going to tell you what I thought. It's pretty standard practice. I also got to preview a couple of other games, one of which in particular rather caught my fancy, so keep an eye out for that. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling. Let's dive right into things. So, Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 1. Yes, I had about... In the end, it was about an hour and a half overall, but realistically it was closer to an hour to sample all three of the main games and also all the little bonus things in there as well, including like the original Metal Gear, Metal Gear 2, not to be confused with Metal Gear Solid 2 or indeed Metal Gear Solid. It's confusing. So sadly, I didn't have masses of time to really sink my teeth into the games in any sort of like super meaningful way. However, you know, considering that they are, you know, the games already exist and I've already played all three of them before, you know, everyone knows what these games are like. It's more, how do they run on Switch and what is the experience like in this new collection? And that's what I'm going to focus on. So I started with Metal Gear Solid and was a little bit surprised to discover that it appears to be running at original resolution, or at least certainly close to it. It feels like it's somewhere between, I don't even think it's 480p, it might be 360p or something. Either way, it is, you can probably just tell from the footage, it's low res. You know, it's kind of how you would experience it on the original PS1. And you know, you can sort of think, okay, well, that's a stylistic choice. To be honest, it's the kind of game where if you were to blow it up to HD, it probably wouldn't look great. You know, that's a reasonable assumption because, it's an old game, but it's here in its entirety, and I can respect the want to try and keep it as close to the original as possible. I think it would be better to have it as an option rather than just, you know, this is the way to play, considering that they've got quite a lot of options in regards to everything else, like you can change the borders, and you can even change where the game screen is. Like, you can have have it in the center with the banners either side, or you can have it to one side of the screen or the other. I'm presuming that's kind of like a way to accommodate streamers and people who do YouTube videos? I don't know. But it's an interesting option, and I do kind of wish there were more options in regards to the fidelity. It may be that they've got their reasons, maybe, I don't know, maybe it doesn't work if you scale it up. I don't know. I've never tried to do it myself. I'm not a video game developer. And as you've also probably realized, it runs at the original frame rate as well, which in cutscenes, they add like some sort of like blurring frames or something like that, some sort of like interpolation, but it's actually running at a lower frame rate. It's strange, but that's only really a big thing during cutscenes, and I don't know, there's, you know, even though I never actually played the original on PlayStation 1, I found something oddly charming about it, you know, it felt very retro. So that was fun at least. But I do want to focus on the other two main games, Metal Gear Solid 2 and Metal Gear Solid 3, because I didn't realize until I loaded up the games myself that these are just the HD collection versions as they were. To be fair to Konami, in all the like pre-release stuff and all the advertising and things like that they've done, they have stated, you know, sort of that it is the HD collection version in an admittedly slim banner underneath the individual games. So they have been upfront about it, but you know, I spoke to the representative who was there, and she clarified for me, and it was very, very helpful, that these are the HD collection games, and they are as they were. They are 720p, and they are locked at 30 frames a second, and that's the same on all platforms. So I was about to export this video and I wasn't completely satisfied with that information right there. So I reached out to Konami to clarify, and I managed to get a response, and I'm gonna read it out to you. I think that's fairest. We use the HD collection versions of both Metal Gear Solid 2 and Metal Gear Solid 3 for porting, so the resolution, 720p, and performance will match that of the 2012 HD collection, which, well, take of that what you will. Obviously, the Switch version is running at half the frame rate, which is a little bit disappointing and does not match the original release. So, as for the other platforms,
I suppose we're just gonna have to wait and see.
The UI has been adjusted ever so slightly to have things like the when you get a call on your comm, it comes up with press minus. It's clear in that regard. It's not showing incorrect button mapping, and the same goes with Metal Gear Solid 1 as well. They've done that, although it has resulted in some minor weirdness, at least in Metal Gear Solid 1. I can't speak for the other two games because I didn't get that much of an opportunity to play them, as I mentioned before. When you start up Metal Gear Solid 1 and you're going through all the comms thing with Campbell, he starts talking about, he's telling you what to do and things like that. And then when he starts talking about using the comm system, there's just no vocals at all, no lines of dialogue. It's just text. And let me just show you.
The frequency is 140.85.
Now, as I said, I'm not entirely familiar with the original version of the game, so I don't know whether maybe there's actually a lot of extra lines here, and, re-recording dialogue is complicated when it comes to, sort of cramming it down on something like that. I understand. But I sort of feel like they could have done something more here than just have silence. It sticks out like a sore thumb, and it's a bit disappointing. And to be honest, that's how I feel about the collection when it comes to the main games. Overall, it's a little bit disappointing. It's great that these games are on here, they're fantastic games. I've played, all three of them, and I love them to death, and I will explain how I'm not familiar with the PS1 version, but still am familiar with Metal Gear Solid 1. I mean, some of you have already worked it out. I'm never opposed to ports and games coming over or anything like that, and, 3 games in one, it's a nice little bundle, but considering even the menus just say HD collection and they say copyright 2012 on them, it just smacks of a little bit of, they built up the collection and they got all the bonus stuff, which I'll get onto. And they've got all this bonus stuff, and then it's just like, select play, Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, and you go into it, and then it's just like, they've just dumped the HD collection ROM straight on there with, updated UI to show the buttons correctly and stuff like that. But even so, that's all they've done as far as I can tell. We know the Switch can handle more than this, and certainly the other consoles can, the Series X and the PS5. There's not a degree of limitation here. It's just, they haven't done anything else to update them. They've kept them, I would almost in a way prefer them to go all out one way or the other. The original versions at their original resolutions and that sort of thing, or maybe upscale or something like that. But instead they've gone for this sort of halfway house. And yet they've got the original version of Metal Gear Solid on there when, and this is the big reveal, the Twin Snakes is right there. That's the version I'm familiar with. That's the version I'm familiar with Metal Gear Solid 1, and it feels very strange to have the original. And to be honest, I think they should have both. You should have the original PS1 version right there, but the Twin Snakes, it's never been re-released, and it may be that there's some sort of complication because they did things with Nintendo, like I seem to remember there's like Yoshi is in there or something, and could you release that on other platforms? It gets complicated, but I'm sure you could find a way around that. I don't know, I don't know, it's just all sort of a bit messy when you sort of scrape away the initial layer. Having said that, the bonus content is very, very good. You've got the original Metal Gear from the MSX and the NES version. You've got Snake's Revenge from the NES as well, which I didn't have a chance to play just because there was so much else I needed to do and I needed to prioritize. And you've got Metal Gear 2 as well from the MSX. And I've never experienced that before, and I thought, I'll load it up, I'll just see what it's like. And I was amazed at how much of the DNA from Metal Gear Solid was there in Metal Gear 2. It was honestly like somebody had taken the original Metal Gear Solid, and they made a demake, in a way. I mean, it was absolutely fascinating, and there's also loads of other stuff. There's all these sort of companion sort of booklets, digital booklets, where you can go through and you can see a load of concept stuff and that sort of thing. And they've even got the screenplays for I know for a fact they've got them They've got it for Metal Gear Solid 3, and I'm sure they have for the others, but I didn't look at them. But I had a look at the Metal Gear Solid 3 one, and it's 900 flipping pages long, if memory serves. It's 923. I didn't record it because I didn't want any spoilers to accidentally get in there, you know. But 927 pages, that's a beefy little thing. Arguably, it's just a PDF, but it's just nice it's there, you know? It's bonus. It's fun. They've also got these adaptations, these books, these graphic novels that they had, and they've got, like, video versions of them as well. They've done a lot of work in that regard. It's just surprising that they didn't do more with the core games. Do you know what I mean? You know, it's great that they're there, and I love the fact that they're coming to Switch, but I just sort of feel like they could have done a little bit more. I wish I had more time with it so that I could really dig in and see whether there is anything else that's indicative of, you know, sort of just being the HD collection versions just slapped on there with a little bit of UI change, because there's a cutscene where one of the characters' names is misspelt. And I think that's only in the HD collection version of Metal Gear Solid 2. But I obviously I didn't have time. I just didn't have time. We've been seeing a lot of re-releases recently on Switch, and you know, a lot of ports. And I think, you know, in a way, that's a good thing. You know, you can take these games that you couldn't play on a system, certainly you can play on a portable system, and suddenly make it so. And that's fantastic. Admittedly, Metal Gear, I know there was the Vita, or was it PSP version? It was released on a portable. It's, you know, it's better. But I think with the likes of Metroid Prime Remastered and stuff like that, people's expectations are getting higher. And I don't think that's unreasonable. You know, you're getting 3 games here. I still don't think it's necessarily a bad collection by any means, but I'd be lying if I said that, in my experience, there wasn't a twinge of disappointment, a twinge of missed opportunity, should we say. Whether that's just from my preview session and that the full game is actually a little bit more meaty, we'll have to wait and see, but I don't see how it could be. What do you think? Do you think my expectations have been warped by the likes of Quake 2? And that this is just absolutely fine as it is? Or do you agree with me? Let us know with a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then why don't you feel strangely claustrophobic when you go through the vents and unlock a memory from when you were a lot younger? Towards that subscribe button. Be sure to check out NintendoLife.com for all sorts of lovely Nintendo-related content. Thank you again for watching. Bye-bye.